Can ChatGPT interpret tongues? I thought I'd do an experiment to see whether this was possible. So I recorded myself speaking in tongues, and I then went to ChatGPT and asked it to interpret some of the features of the language. And let's see what happened. First, in translating it, I slowed the recording down because there's no way at speed that I was going to be able to transliterate the letters of the syllables of the tongues. So I slowed it down and then submitted the text or transliteration into English vowels and syllables to ChatGPT. So the first thing I typed in was, the following is a very short excerpt of a Christian praying in tongues. It has been transliterated into English consonants and vowels. From your knowledge of language, provide a possible translation of this excerpt or identify any linguistic ideas present in the excerpt. Okay, and then I presented the excerpt. Anyway, so it was interesting to see what ChatGPT was going to come up with. Okay, so it came up with, the provided excerpt seems to be a transliteration of someone praying in tongues. Well, duh, I told it that. Which is a phenomenon associated with certain charismatic Christian traditions or Pentecostal traditions. Praying in tongues, also known as glossolalia, involves speaking an unintelligible or unknown languages as a form of spiritual communication. Given the nature of glossolalia, it is challenging to provide a specific translation for the excerpt. Okay, so ChatGPT tries to bail out, doesn't it? Okay, as utterances do not conform to any recognisable linguistic structures or known language patterns. Thanks, ChatGPT. Glossolalia is believed to be a form of ecstatic speech, although, gee, I wasn't over the moon while I was saying that. Anyway, whatever. Often characterised by repetitive syllables. Well, I can at least agree with it on that. Vowel sounds and consonant clusters is thought to be a spiritual expression of a direct communication between the speaker and a higher power, namely the Holy Spirit. You can say that, ChatGPT. Anyway, okay, so that was its first response. Okay, so then I asked ChatGPT, can you comment on any linguistic similarities from the excerpt in relation to known human languages? Is there anything resembling a human language in the tongues excerpt? Okay, let's see what ChatGPT said. Okay, so here's what ChatGPT said. Although the provided excerpt is a transliteration of glossolalia, it doesn't correspond to any known language. It is possible to identify some linguistic similarities or patterns that are reminiscent of certain language features. 1. Syllable repetition. The repetition of syllables such as ba, da, di, do, and da is a common characteristic of glossolalia. This repetition of syllables can be found in some natural languages as well. For example, in reduplication processes used for various purposes like emphasis, pluralization, or intensification. Okay, so it's pointing out some linguistic features here. 2. Vowel sounds. The presence of vowel sounds like and in the excerpt is reminiscent of the vowel systems found in many human languages. Vowels are essential building blocks of language and often play a crucial role in distinguishing between words and conveying grammatical information. Okay, so it's saying, it has some linguistic features to it, okay, but in terms of grammar and syntax, it either hasn't worked it out or thinks that there isn't any there. Okay, consonant clusters. The excerpt contains clusters of consonants like sh, th, and kum. Consonant clusters are also found in various natural languages, although specific combinations may differ between languages. The use of consonant clusters can impact the phonetics, it's phonotactics, phonotactics or permissible combinations of sounds in a given language, okay? Let's keep going. Intonation and rhythm, although not explicitly represented in the provided excerpt, glossolalia often involves variations in intonation, pitch and rhythm. Well, I couldn't tell because I didn't get at the recording, did I? Okay, these elements are also important features of spoken languages and they can convey meaning, mood, emphasis in communication. Okay, so it's saying those things. It's worth noting that while glossolalia may share some superficial similarities with certain language features, it does not adhere to systematic grammatical rules or semantic structures found in natural languages. Although it doesn't elaborate on that, which would have been nice, it's making that statement. Okay, glossolalia is a unique phenomenon associated with spiritual practices and is not considered a human language in the conventional sense. All right, so it's just telling us whatever it's programmed or come across to understand. So we still have to seem to convince it to actually look into this, okay? So anyway, let's go on. Okay, so it seemed a bit hung up on that it was dealing with an excerpt to do with glossolalia. So I said to it, forget that this is glossolalia and treat it as a text of a human language. Provide any clues or ideas as to what the human language might be. So I'm seeing, is this any possibility that this correlates with the human language at all in any sense? Okay, apart from the ones that's already pointed out to us. All right, let's see what it said. Okay, so its reply was, I apologise for any confusion. If we treat the provided excerpt as a text of a human language, despite its origins in glossolalia, it is important to note that it does not resemble any specific known language. All right, I think we get the point by now, ChatGPT. The combination of consonants, vowels, and repetitive syllables does not align with the patterns or structures found in natural language. Good, thank you for another affirmation of something you've been saying all along. However, I can attempt to identify a few linguistic features and ideas present in the excerpt. Okay, so it's actually going to do something, which is good. All right, syllable structure. The excerpt consists of mostly consonant-vowel-consonant or CV consonant-vowel syllables with occasional repetitions of syllables. This syllable structure is found in various languages, including English, but it is also quite common across many languages worldwide. The vowel inventory, vowels are presented in the excerpt are relatively common vowel sounds found in numerous languages. However, these vowels are not exclusive to any specific language and occur in a wide range of linguistic contexts. Consonant combinations, the presence of consonant clusters such as the sh, th, and kum is reminiscent of many languages including English. However, these specific clusters are not exclusive to any particular language and can be found in various language families. Lack of clear grammatical structures. One notable characteristic of this excerpt is the absence of clear grammatical structures such as verbs, conjugations, noun phrases, or syntactic patterns. This lack of discernible grammar makes it difficult to associate the text with a specific language. Okay, so if there are any of these things, it's saying they're not part of what it recognises in human languages. So thanks for the comment. There we go. Okay, so I kept probing it with a question again, trying to get a response from it. I said then, it might be difficult, but if this was an excerpt in a human language, what language do you think it might most resemble? Okay, so gave it the full extent of human languages and said, out of all the human languages you know, which one is it most resemble. Okay, and let's have a look, see what it said. And here was its response. If we consider the provided excerpt as an arbitrary sequence of consonants and vowels in a hypothetical human language, despite lacking clear grammatical structures, it bears some resemblance to the phonetic patterns found in Semitic languages. Okay, so it has said this sounds like a Semitic language, if anything. Okay, Semitic languages such as Arabic, Hebrew, and Amharic share certain characteristics that can be observed in the excerpt, including, so these are the similarities. Consonant, vowel, consonant, syllable structure. Okay, it contains mainly CVC syllables, which aligns with the syllable structure commonly found in Semitic languages, but also other languages as well, of course. All right. Right, presence of consonant clusters. The occurrence of consonant clusters like sh and kum in the excerpt is reminiscent of clusters found in Semitic languages. Okay, so it's interesting that it's not saying it's like English, but anyway, that's vowel inventory. The presence of vowel sounds like and is relatively common in Semitic languages, although these specific vowels do not exclusively belong to Semitic languages. Repetition of syllables. The repetition of syllables in glossolalia has similarities to the phonetic patterns observed in Semitic languages, which often feature root-based systems with recurring consonant patterns. Okay. While these resemblances exist, it's important to note that the provided excerpt does not adhere to the grammatical structures or vocabulary of known Semitic languages. The similarities identified are based solely on certain phonetic characteristics present in the Semitic languages. So it's very vague in terms of the way it resembles those languages. But having said that, it has made the concurrence that it's closely aligned with those languages. All right, what do we make of that? Well, not much from what it says, but anyway, let's go on with the next thing I asked it. Okay. Okay, so previously I'd asked it, and did it resemble any human language, and it identified, yeah, it was sort of like a Semitic language. I then asked it, well, okay, it's like a Semitic language. Are there any Semitic root words that might resemble any words in the excerpt? Okay, and it then came up with some for me, which was quite surprising, and in particular, what those words were. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Okay, so its response to the request for what words, if any, might be there, it said, considering the provided excerpt and attempting to find similarities with Semitic word roots, I will explore a few possibilities. However, it is important to note that these are speculative and not definitive matches. Okay, so yeah, all right, it's having a go. At least it's having a go. Given the nature of the glossolalia text is challenging to establish direct connections with specific word roots. Here are some potential associations, although they should be taken with caution. All right, fine. We're just seeing this as an experiment, okay? There's ba, which is the repetition of ba could vaguely resemble the Hebrew root ba, which can carry meanings related to inside or within. Okay, fair enough. Let's go on. Then there's di. Repetition of di might bear some resemblance to the Hebrew root di, which can mean sufficient or enough. Okay. And then there was shah. The syllable shah does not align closely with any known Semitic roots. However, it does include the sh sound commonly found in Semitic languages. Okay, there's another one. Kum, kum. Okay, so it's cough. And then meh. The syllable kum could loosely resemble the Hebrew root quim, which means to arise or to stand. Okay. And then there's which is a syllable and does not correspond precisely to any Semitic root, but shares similarities with the sound found in many Semitic languages as a vowel. Okay, so it's a vowel, implied vowel, because Semitic languages you usually write in just the consonants. Okay, it's important to reiterate that these associations are speculative and based on limited information. Well, I only gave it one sentence, so that's fair enough. The nature of glossolalia makes it challenging to draw direct connections to specific word roots or meanings. Okay, that's fine. As I said, I didn't expect to get anywhere with this in terms of a comparison with any kind of human language. So it was kind of interesting that it went down that path, and that gave us, like, if you were just hearing a message in tongues and you understood Semitic languages, you might be able to pick up some of that, but who knows. Anyway, so some things I'll comment on quickly before we wind things up, that the tongues I was speaking was totally spontaneous, and as you can hear from the excerpt, it was quite rapid. For it then to take just even a tiny little sentence, you'll notice I didn't even transliterate the entire excerpt. For it to take that and discover things like that in it, I find fascinating. No one's claiming that glossolalia is human languages, or that this was some attempt to speak in Hebrew or something like that, because it wasn't. My own knowledge of Hebrew is I can identify the letters and I can identify what a word in Hebrew says, and I often, enough for that to be able to go to a text that has the Hebrew and actually read what the word is, and then I can look it up in a dictionary. So I use it for my Bible studies. But having said that, I don't have any working knowledge of Hebrew. So anyway, so that was interesting. I wasn't really expecting to get anywhere with this, and was quite surprised that we actually got some similarity to a human language, although that's not necessarily important. I just thought it was an observation that it was interesting that it did that, and I won't go any further than that, because then we head off in all kinds of branches of speculation. But anyway, it was very interesting that, first of all, it got somewhere, and then it even identified some Semitic roots that might have been present in the tongues. Okay, so despite the fact that it said it's lacking in grammatical structure, there's nothing that relates to human language, it was still able to pick up a similarity to a human language, and it was still able to pick up that there were word roots that could, I could have taken those word roots and surmised some meaning in just that one sentence of tongues. So whether it has meaning or not is totally the realm of speculation. But I did find it interesting that it came up with something, and was pleasantly surprised, since I didn't expect it would come up with anything like that. Anyway, so I hope you found this video interesting. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.